Thermal mass, something that's been widely misunderstood by the industry for a long time. Lots of people get it, lots of people don't get it. Every material has some form of heat capacity, also known as thermal mass. For some material to lift its temperature by 1 degree, you need to put a certain amount of heat in. If you need to put a lot of heat in, it has high thermal mass. If you need to put a little amount of heat in, it has low thermal mass. Good things for thermal mass are really high density materials. This could be brick, could be concrete, it could be a road. In summer, the sun's on the road all day. At night after the sun's gone down, the road still maintains a lot of its heat. A timber deck though, has low thermal mass. It doesn't take much to get it hot, but when that sun disappears, the temperature disappears out of it really quickly. For thermal mass to be effective, it needs to be installed in an area with excess heat so it can absorb energy to release later on. Rooms which get lots of sun are good choices, usually on the north side of the house. For best effect, the thermal mass should be positioned so the sun shines directly onto it. Rooms with log burners or other large fires can also be useful places to put thermal mass, as they will store excess heat from the fire. As a general guide, EECA advised that the large amount of thermal mass should be in contact with the air in a north-facing room that gets significant sun. For good thermal mass in a house, you want to use materials that are really high density, such as concrete or block or brick. You want them to be around 1 to 200 mils thick. Ones in darker colour are better absorbing heat, and you want to place it in a place where it's going to absorb lots of heat during the day, and during night when it's cooler, it's going to release that heat back out again. Thermal mass should not be installed in places which do not absorb heat from the sun or from another energy source that will usefully give it back to you at the end of the day. For instance, if you installed thermal mass on the south side of a room, it's not going to get any sun on it, and what it means is that any heating that you have in that room is going to heat the thermal mass, which makes it harder for you to actually get that space warm when you want it to be warm, and when you're in bed or when you've got the heating off, then it will slowly release that back out again. You want to put thermal mass somewhere where it's going to get the best energy. If you put carpet down or timber on top of concrete that you're trying to use as thermal mass, it's not really going to work well. You're putting an insulating surface on it which stops the energy getting into that thermal mass. If you do have carpet in a room, especially on a north side glazing, you might have some bifolding doors or ranch side or something like that. What you want to do is put at least a metre thick strip of concrete or tiles to allow you to readily accept that energy from the sun. When it goes back down again, you're left with a nice warm perimeter that can release that energy back off again. So in summary, make sure it's in a place that readily accepts energy that isn't to the detriment of that room. Make sure that the energy that's being absorbed by it is excess energy. What do I mean by that? I mean, you've got to put it somewhere where the room can get warm even though it's still absorbing energy through the thermal mass. So you don't want the energy from the thermal mass to be sucking all the heat out of the space to warm it up whilst you're sitting there cold, and then to give it back once you've gone to bed. If you decide to use a wall as thermal mass, make sure it's not on the outside of the house. The sun will heat up that thermal mass, and then when the sun goes down again, it'll release all that energy back out to the environment again. That's great, but you can't use that as useful thermal mass inside your house. So you need to do something a bit more clever. You want to have the thermal mass, the stone, the brick, the concrete, the blockwork, all that exposed, heavy, high density thermal mass. You want to have that on the inside of the house, but you want to insulate it so that when it does get nice and warm during the day, it's not going to release that heat outside, it's going to release it into the space. So if you do have an insulated wall and you want it to be thermal mass, put your thermal mass on the inside, then you have your insulation and then your external cladding. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Don't have a concrete wall with no insulation on it and expect to use that as effective thermal control. It's not going to work.